Hello, I'm an old fart, and I have a guilty pleasure. I like knives. I'm not an official representative of anything or anybody or an expert. I just like knives. I collect small folding pocket knives, and over the last year or so, as a COVID-19 lockdown project, I've been leading you on a little tour through some of the interesting knives in my collection. Today we're going to look at this one. This is a Kizer Yorkie, surprisingly compact and high quality little knife that I have come to like. Where did this come from? This has been on my to-do list, or my to-get list, I guess you would call it, for some time. I had seen many reviews of it, but never seen a real one. There are more models coming out now, but originally there were two choices. There was a gray titanium or an anodized blue titanium. I didn't like the weird hole in the gray. The blue is a solid body, and I liked the looks of it, so it was on my list. And I finally, recently, had an opportunity to get one at a good price. It was on sale, and I had a coupon, and there was an opportunity to get free shipping by combining it with something else that I needed. So all those things added up, and I grabbed it. It arrived. And I must say, I knew it was a small knife, but I was surprised how compact it is. And I like it more than I expected to, which was already quite a lot. So that's where it came from. So formally, this is by Kizer, and it is the Kizer Yorkie. It is a Laconico design knife, and you can tell that in a couple of ways. First of all, it says Laconico on the back of the spine there. But more important, Ray has a very noticeable design style. Always simple lines, straight edges, rounded ends, usually spherically arcs like this, not canted like that. The back is always simple with a milled clip that matches the lines of the knife. Let me show you what I mean by that. Here are some Ray Laconico knives. Here is a Monterey Bay EZC. See the design similarity? Its monster-sized brother, the XLC, and just as a slight change, the Old Guard. So you can see in the clip sides the similarity in Ray's designs. Now, the other side, it may be a little less obvious because of the different scale materials, but I don't know. Ray has a very noticeable style, which I like a lot. So that was one of the things I wanted, was to add another Ray Laconico to the collection. So anyway, there you are, formally Kizer Yorkie. Mechanism, this is a side flipper. There's the flipper tab, and there's the flip, and it is a frame lock, so traditional titanium frame lock. The blade is running on bearings, caged bearings, and it is very smooth. And the thing about this knife is the size. So let's spend a little time talking about that. As I said, I was surprised how small it is. I knew it was small, but it's smaller than I expected. To use the most important and internationally recognized size scale, at 156 millimeters long, it is about 0.85 pocket calculators. For reasons I don't understand, it's common to compare knives to other knives, so let's do a bit of that. So my standard comparator for mid-sized or small knives is the Benchmade Mini Griptilian. As you can see, it's quite a bit smaller than the Mini Griptilian. So let's go to a tiny knife. A tiny knife in the collection would be the Almar Hawk Ultralight, just slightly larger than that. Go to like a small mid-sized knife, the Chris Reeve Small Incosi, a little bit smaller than that. So it is smaller than mid-sized knives, but larger than tiny knives. However, unlike, say, the Almar, this feels solid and secure. With some tiny knives, like this one, it is so small that I feel like I'm going to break it. It's a little bit sort of insecure feeling, and the Benchmade Megumi is even worse. This isn't. This locks solidly. There's no blade play. A fair amount of width here, so I don't have any sense of uncertainty about whether this knife will hold. So it achieves smallness without sacrificing sturdiness and confidence. I'll call it compact, I think, instead of tiny. The weight is 83 grams, which is slightly more than the mini Griptilian, slightly more than the small Sabenza. So it's not a featherweight knife. The blade is beautiful. I like Ray Laconico's blade designs. It's a 2.5-inch blade, so well under the magic 3-inch limit in places where that matters. It's a drop point, and there's lots of drop, quite a substantial drop from the back here, and a minimal rise, with the result being, I think, a very pleasant sort of leaf shape. It's almost a spear point. So, steel on the blade is S35VN. It has a tiny choil, just there. So a choil that is effective for sharpening, allows you to stay away from the shoulder while sharpening, but not big enough for choking up. So we'll call it a sharpening choil and not a finger choil. The body is titanium. As I said, they've increased the number of scale options you can get now. For example, I think you can get micarta, but this is a solid titanium scale. Not an integral, I don't mean solid in that way. It's 2 slabs with spacers. This particular one is anodized blue, and I think the color is beautiful. And when you anodize titanium, you still get access to the patina, the snail trails and minor changes from hand oil and so on that happens with titanium. So I think it's pretty. Clip is a typical Ray Laconico design clip. It is milled titanium. It matches the style of the knife. It's grooved down the center in a way that lines up with the groove of the frame lock, which I think is really a nice design detail. And it is canted slightly, which is good for 2 reasons. One is that it matches how the knife probably sits in your pocket. Knives don't typically sit vertically in your pocket. They have to tilt a bit. And being canted, it isn't sitting on the locking mechanism, so it's not pressing and making it hard to open the lock. So, beautifully attractive clip. It is shallow carry. I generally prefer deep carry clips when they're available, but in these designs, I think it suits the knife very well. There's no lanyard hole. I think you could put a lanyard in if you cared enough by tightly wrapping it around these back spacers, because they are center grooved like pulleys, and I think you could get a fob around that, but I would say don't. This knife is all about simple lines, and I think having something dangling out of it would spoil that effect. How about ambidextrousness? Is that a word? So for opening, sure, being a side flipper, you can open it. No, I don't know if I can open it, but one can open it. Yes, I can. Look at that. One can open it with either hand. For closing, of course, no. Being a frame lock, it has to be disengaged with the thumb, and maybe lefties can do that with their left hand, but even I can, I guess, but boy, that's awkward. So I wouldn't call it ambidextrous. And the clip is not movable, so it's this side carry only. Manufactured in China. I think Kizer does its own manufacturing. I don't think they subcontract that. I'm not positive about that. So that's the details of the knife. Let's run through some likes and dislikes. So I like a lot about this knife. I like the appearance. Clearly a Ray Laconico design, especially if you look at the clip side. Clearly a Ray Laconico design. Clean lines. I like that the presentation side is very clean. Not a lot of stuff there. I mentioned I like the anodized titanium, the attractive color. It's already developing a bit of patina just from my thumbs and fingers handling it and using it. And I like, staying with the appearance, I like that the writing, there is a fair amount of writing on the knife, but it's subtle. The Kizer logo there on the stonewash blade doesn't really jump out at you. Steel and serial number, and Yorkie on this side. So I'd like it even better if it had less writing on it, but at least the writing isn't gaudy, and I like that. I like most things about the mechanism. One problem we'll come to in a moment. It is very smooth. It's very quiet. Flippers can be noisy and attract attention, which, looking for non-threatening knives, I don't like. This one, because it runs so smoothly and it's so small, this is not a loud attention-getting smack. It's a subtle snick when it opens. So I like that. And I like, as with many side flippers, not all, I like that when I disengage the lock and start closing it, the flipper tab acts as a finger guard. So it's stopping the closing action there. so that I cannot easily forget and close the blade on my thumb. I have to move out of the way. So I like that. The flipper tab acts both as a finger guard to keep me from sliding onto the blade and as a protector to stop me from closing the blade on myself. So I like that. The blade itself, I like S35VN steel. Of course, it was developed with and is the standard for Chris Reeve knives. Hard to argue with that as a vote of confidence. And it came plenty sharp. Now, it's not mirror sharp. Can I get that so you can see the grind on the blade? I would say it's about 600, 800, something like that. So it's not mirror sharp, but boy, it's sharp. It was plenty sharp, paper cutting sharp easily. I did feel the urge to strop it a little bit, so I did. But it's usably sharp right now, feeling no urge to sharpen it. And the blade is stone washed, which I like, because it doesn't fingerprint. There are a few marks on the blade from cutting things and so on, but I don't feel the urge to polish it as soon as I've touched it. So I do like a stone wash finish on a blade. For actually cutting, let's talk about comfort. It's a comfortable knife to hold. Now, it's not a big knife. In fact, it's a compact knife. So you get 3 fingers and not 4 on it. 4th is down here somewhere. So maybe that means, it's not as sturdy a grip as I'd like. I probably would not want to build a house with this knife. But it is comfortable to hold. There are no hot spots, not on the sides. The edges are nicely rounded. The clip is small and compact. It just fits very nicely into this groove of my hands, so there are no hot spots. And the flipper tab is acting as a finger rest and finger guard, so it is a very comfortable knife to hold and to cut with. So I like it a lot. What I don't like, I've only thought of one thing that I don't like, but it's not a minor one, and that is because the flipper tab is polished smooth. There's no jimping or knurling there, so it is easy to slip off, and so it's easy to misfire when opening this knife. If you're not paying attention, that happens. I didn't get enough of a flip, and it's not open all the way. Now, it's easy to, the good news is, it's easy to finish. I can just push here, or I can just do a little wrist flick. So it's not a difficult misfire to correct, but I still wish it didn't. And it does rather often. You have to make a point of sort of firmly seating your finger. You have to think about it and do a good, hard flick. And that's 100% reliable if you stop and think about it. But if I just pull it out of my pocket and do that, well, okay, of course it's not working. Just pull it out of my pocket, not really thinking about it. Oh, there it is. Didn't open all the way. So I think just a little bit of jimping or knurling on the flipper tab would fix that. So that's my only complaint that I've been able to think of after carrying it for quite some time. So let's run through my knife rating system. My NTGK rating, which is, of course, for non-threatening gentleman's knife. And we'll do non-threatening first. For non-threatening, well, the good news is that it's compact. It's a small knife, and small knives are less scary. The good news is that if you choose to flip it open, the flip is fairly quiet, so it's going to scare people less. People do tend to think that flippers are switchblades, but this is less scary. And this is really neat. Unusual for a flipper, and I don't know if this is a design intent, but you can open this two-handed. There's enough blade there to get, and it's held gently enough by the detent that you can actually get your fingers on that blade and pull it open. And so in front of nervous people, that's what I do. Okay, instead of flipping it open and getting the switchblade reaction, open it two-handed. Works just fine. Now, because there's no nail, nick, or knurling or anything, like I said, I don't think that's a design intent, but works really well. So, and finally, it's an elegant-looking knife. It's an elegant-looking blade. Nice, simple handle. It doesn't look like a weapon. It doesn't look like it was designed to scare people, and I think that adds to the non-threateningness of it. Now, the bad on non-threatening, of course, is that it is a flipper, and you can fast flip it. And when you fast flip it, you scare people. So don't do that. Okay. But I'm not counting that against it, because you can open it two-handed. So I'm going to say A+ for non-threatening. Now, for GK, gentleman's knife, The good is that it's a well-known designer, respected designer. There we are, Laconico. It's an elegant-looking knife. High-end materials, good steel, titanium, and so on. The anodized color is quite neat. It's pocket-friendly. It's small, reasonably light, so it goes in your pocket nicely. It does stick out with the shallow carry clip, but the anodizing kind of reduces the gaudiness when it's sticking out. So I think it carries elegantly, which is important for a gentleman's knife. Now, the bad news, as I just mentioned, though, is being shallow carry only. You really do have something conspicuous sticking out of your pocket, even if it's less conspicuous than some. For the shallow carry and not having the option of going deep, I'll give it just an A as a gentleman's knife. So as an NTGK, A+ for non-threatening, A for gentleman, I'm going to call it an A+ overall. And I do really think it hits those marks beautifully. Next, let's talk about my KN rating. What will knife nerds think about this knife? Well, frankly, I read a lot more knife nerd commentary on this knife before I ever owned one, and the summary seems to be they love it. Knife nerds respect Laconico. They like the simple, elegant design. They like the smooth action. I think the negative is, so I'm going to give it an A, by the way, as knife nerds. And I think the negative is those occasional misfires. That's why I'm not giving it an A+, but certainly an A as a KN. And finally, my CMR, cut myself rating. Well, on my scale, I'm going to have to give it a B, because I have cut myself a couple of times on this knife. Not while opening and closing it, actually. It's quite safe there. But while cleaning it. It's small. There's a misfire. It's small and compact enough that, I was, just the other day, I was cleaning some oil residue here, and then I went to turn it around, and just in the act of turning it around, because it's so compact, I managed to slice my knuckle, and I've sliced another part of my finger. So just one of the disadvantages of relatively compact knives is you're close to the blade when handling it. So anyway, a B as a CMR. And that brings us to the end. Summary is, I expected to like this knife, but I like it even more than I expected because of how compact and yet still usable it is. That frankly surprised me. I would call it an almost perfect NTGK. To be perfect, just knurl or jimp the flipper tab to eliminate those embarrassing misfires, and I think it might be one of the perfect NTGKs. I'm not going to say the perfect, because that would imply I'm picking one, and I don't think I can do that. So anyway, a knife I'm really pleased with. I like a lot. And if going back to the office ever becomes a thing again, this will definitely be one of the ones that commonly comes with me to the office. Thanks for watching. See you again, and bye-bye.